City Spotlight is supported by Consolidated Communications. CCI is honored to salute the cities and their leaders in the area, as well as providing TV, internet, and phone service to local homes and businesses. We live where we work and are proud to support the communities we serve. More information available at consolidated.com. Hello and welcome to City Spotlight, and Happy New Year, as we are presenting this episode to you in the beginning of January 2021. We are featuring Mattoon in this episode. And to start off this program, I'd like to take a moment to remember Tim Gover. Tim passed away December 3rd and was in his third term as mayor of Mattoon. Tim, a Mattoon native, was a regular here on City Spotlight, 8 appearances, including our very first episode, which we taped 6 years ago, January of 2015. We are thankful for Tim's contributions to City Spotlight, and we pass along our condolences to his family. And now, as we dive into this episode on Mattoon, back in early November 2020, we taped an episode featuring education in Mattoon, and we taped our very first City Spotlight Zoom interview. That interview was with another regular here on City Spotlight, Dr. Josh Bullock, Lakeland College president. Dr. Bullock will share with you how Lakeland has navigated through the COVID-19 pandemic, improved their facilities, and received a few accolades over the past year. Thank you again for joining us here on City Spotlight as we continue on here in Season 7. Thanks for watching and stay safe. And we welcome back to the program the president of Lakeland College, Dr. Josh Bullock. Josh, great to see you.
Great to see you too, Ramin, and thank you for inviting me back.
Yes, excellent. We've had Josh on a multitude of ways here on City Spotlight in the convenient studios of WEIU and last fall at Lakeland College there at the new Luther Student Center. So we'll get you on the program however we can, Josh.
Absolutely. I love being on your program.
Excellent. Thank you very much for taking the time. No busy schedule. Been a crazy year. A lot has changed since we last talked last year, a little over a year ago. First, Josh, let's go back about 8 months because we're taping here on November 6th. So mid-March, a lot of things changed for everyone across the United States, especially in Illinois. How did Lakeland react to everything back then in mid-March?
Well, I think Lakeland responded as we would have expected to. I'm so proud of our staff. They've always been flexible. They've been agile. They're willing to try new things. And when the pandemic hit and we went on the state lockdown, we literally transitioned all of our courses and all of our labs from the majority face-to-face to everything being virtual within about 2 weeks. And what really impressed me was everybody just buckled down and did what they had to do. There was no complaining. There was no sense of, gosh, why is this happening to us? Everybody said, we know what we have to do and we're going to do it. And it really made me proud to lead such a great group of individuals who really had the best interest of the students at heart. So it was an interesting transition, but much like all of higher education, we made it through. And I think we've continued to learn a lot as we've worked through the pandemic.
When everything was happening as an educator and all your years of doing what you do, having to react at a split-second notice to kind of have to shift gears and adjust on the fly. What was that like for you personally? Okay, we got to change what we're doing here and we got to do it now.
I think what we saw among myself and many of our leaders was this extreme intensity and hyper-focus. As soon as we realized what we had to do, it was 14, 16-hour days, weekends, all of us on our emergency operations center getting together and mapping out what we needed to do, assigning those tasks and having everybody really do it. And when it was done, I shouldn't say when it was done, but when everything was switched over, we really kind of took some time to look back and say, okay, how did that work? And I think we've done that assessment throughout. So it was what we would expect from folks. People just, again, focused on what they needed to get done, and they did it.
And you were able to focus. Everybody was able to finish off because you were in the middle of, obviously, the latter half of the spring semester. So the campus community was able to do that. And as I see down on my notes here, you were able to give some much needed financial aid and to help the students get through everything.
We were, and when the pandemic hit and the federal government passed the CARES Relief Act monies, Lakeland College received some of those funds, about $1.2 million, to distribute to students. So we quickly put a protocol in place to be able to help those students who needed us the most. And in the spring term alone, we awarded over $800,000, which to me, to over 850 students was absolutely remarkable. That was to help students purchase technology, to pay their bills. We had students who were working part-time that they could no longer work. And so they were very nervous about where their money was going to come from to survive. And so I can't say enough about our financial aid staff that helped us to distribute those funds. And we know that now that we're in the fall term, we have expended all of the funds and helped about 1,400 students in the process to continue their education.
You guys are also able to perform very well during that, as far as the students, and attendance was remarkably very impressive as well.
It was. And one of the things that when we went back and kind of digested after the spring semester ended, we had a lot of concern of how many students really did we lose that didn't reach out to us and truly struggled. But what we found was the grades of the students in the spring term, even during the remote time, were comparable to what they would have been during a traditional spring term. And the retention was actually higher. So I think because we had students who we were so focused on serving them and making ourselves available in whatever way we could, that despite the tragedy of the pandemic, they really felt valued. And I think that helped them to persist. And so we continue to learn from the pandemic. And I think one of the things we learned was that our students are extremely resilient. And if we make our services available, they will take advantage of those.
Resilient is the perfect word you use there for not just education, but everything during this crazy pandemic, which has been impacting us here in Illinois for going on 8 months now here as we tape here again on November 6th. So we're still in the early parts of this new season of City Spotlight. These past 5 episodes, I've talked with a bunch of educators, K through 12, higher ed, such as yourself, and across Central Illinois. And I've heard universally from all these educators, and I'm sure you'll agree, about the process of having to adjust to your respective campus and community to get ready for this new school year. Talk about Lakeland's process as you shifted from the end of last school year to those crazy summer months of having to prep for the new norm, as everyone says now.
Sure. And it really is a new norm. We spent a great deal of time this summer working on our plans to come back to campus. Our return to campus plan was extremely comprehensive. We followed guidance from IDPH, from the Illinois Community College Board, from our local county health department. We worked very closely with them. We worked with our faculty to really determine what's the appropriate way to serve students and how can we do this together to make sure that students are getting the quality education they need, while also making sure that we can reduce concentrations on campus. So we spent a tremendous amount of time putting our plan together. Anybody who comes to campus now needs to complete our campus access visitor form, our screening form before they come to campus, pass through our screening tent on campus. We have one entrance open. Most of our buildings have only one entrance to get into the building. We have pathways marked. We have social distancing marked. Our physical plant staff did a wonderful job for those labs where we do have students in place, or our services, making sure that social distancing could be adhered to. So it really was a team effort to get us to where we are today. And again, I am amazed at how it all came together because everybody knew what we had to do. And I think that's just the mantra, as you said, the new normal. I've seen that throughout all of higher education, is everybody's pulled together to make sure we can serve students. So it was a challenging summer, but when we opened in the fall, I think we were very well prepared.
When did the academic school year start for Lakeland? How are students learning? And obviously, you kind of already alluded to talk about and emphasize the safety protocols that you have going on there at Lakeland.
Sure. We started in mid-August, met like many of our peers in higher education. And we have a number of formats for students to learn. One of our primary goals was to make sure that those areas where students needed hands-on learning, we were able to accomplish that. And so we worked with our faculty to make sure that happened. So many of our labs are on campus. Of course, social distancing is required, masks are required, all the things that we would normally do in preparation. And with those students on campus, we were able to provide that hands-on experience. We looked at anything that might be lecture-based, for instance, and looked at various modalities for that. So we have the online option for students. We have those that are virtual synchronous, where students do some of their work online, but they still meet with instructors either once or twice a week, virtually, like we're doing today, where they can still have that face-to-face interaction. We did ensure that all of our services were available face-to-face on campus, so that if somebody needed to come in and work with a staff member, they certainly could do that. So we took every precaution we could, but also making sure that we had opportunities for face-to-face. The other cool thing is we moved a lot of our student life activities online, and the participation has been wonderful. We've heard students say it's really kind of nice being able to participate in a different and unique way. So again, I think much of what we're seeing with the response to the pandemic we're going to assess that and determine what really needs to stick. What is it that students have found extremely valuable that we can use to move ourselves forward in the future?
And as I've heard from all educators here on this season 7 of City Spotlight, the protocols, procedures, and measures that you've set for every institution and or community are based on what's in the best interest for them. One thing that I took from my interview with Dr. Jim Reynolds at Millikan is that one unique thing about higher ed that's a little bit different than K through 12 is you've had to worry about the housing of the students on your campus.
Absolutely. I think student housing is a big issue. And of course, we don't own student housing, but we have a strong partnership with housing near us. When students live in that close of quarters, you just have to be cognizant during a pandemic of how things spread. So I think we've done our best to work with the managers to ensure that our students are social distancing. Many of our athletes live there, and so our coaches have some pretty strict protocols in place for how they can interact with each other and how they interact as a team. So that is a challenge for all of us. The other thing with higher education is our standards are different in higher ed than it is for K-12. K-12 serves a very concentrated group of students because they're very controlled. They're in a controlled environment. They come from a very narrow geographic area, where someone like Lakeland College, as an entity, we serve 4,000 square miles. So we have to be cognizant that we have students coming from all over that might, depending on how the positivity rate is in their county, they might be at a higher or elevated risk than we might see in the K-12. So I think some of the challenges are a little bit different, but I think in the end, we all have the goal of serving the students the best we can.
Feedback from everybody on campus, it seems the workflow seems to be working with this new norm.
Yeah, I think the feedback on campus has been absolutely outstanding. People realize we're all doing the best we can. This is we're calling this the year of grace, where we have to give each other grace, we have to give our students grace, we have to give ourselves grace. That it's an imperfect year, so we're going to do imperfect things. But as long as we're all trying to do the right things, that's really what matters. And I think I've seen that come out of our staff. Is things have gone very, very well, and people are giving each other grace. When something doesn't go well, they sit down and figure out how to fix it.
Okay. Very good. And many of those students that you have on campus now, again, as Lakeland has taken pride in, are a lot of local area students.
Yes, Lakeland College, again, we saw about 1/3 of all high school graduates from the class of 2020 come to Lakeland College, which for us, we are so proud of because it continues our reputation as the #1 higher education choice in the area. When we look at just those who go on to college, we're about 60%. So again, I think it's a tremendous value. I appreciate so much our partnerships with our 4-year institutions. We send a lot of our students, of course, to EIU. That's our most significant transfer partner. And so I just love the way that we can all work together to ensure that within our local communities, there is the opportunity to go from kindergarten all the way through a master's degree within our area. That to me is just tremendous.
Great to hear about the local kids being able to stay close to home and go to the local institutions nearby. Very good. All right. We're in the middle of a pandemic, but you got a bunch of accomplishments that we're going to talk about now. So as we shift gears here a little bit, and as I may have told you before the interview, I want to shift the order we have here of these list of accomplishments, because a little over a year ago, I was on campus with you in person, and we did an on-location episode with you at the renovated Luther Student Center. It was almost done at the time, and you obviously had a grand opening dedication a little bit later. But thank you again for the tour of the facility. It looked amazing. Looked great on the episode.
You're welcome.
How did the students and staff, all of campus, how did it work for everyone? Did they enjoy it as much as I did?
They are truly enjoying it. Unfortunately, we had the grand reopening in December, and then the pandemic hit in March. But the students, before March, I would walk in there anytime during the day, and it was packed with students. There are so many areas for students just to hang out, to study, to converse. The feedback we have had both from students and staff has been absolutely outstanding, which is what we wanted. We really wanted to build a facility that our students felt proud of and wanted to utilize.
A very important building on campus there. A lot of traffic in that area there. Very good. Talk about the new foundation and alumni center.
In a building we're extremely proud of, thanks to the generous contribution of our foundation, who donated funds to help pay for the building. You may remember the old bookstore building on Lakeland's campus. It was a 40-plus-year-old temporary building that was installed while campus was being constructed. And that building was turned into the bookstore a number of years ago. And so when that bookstore was torn down, we decided to build a foundation alumni center. it's an area where we can engage communities. One of the things that was really important was building a room that was sizable enough that we could have events. So we have a room in that building that will handle 150 seated at round tables, so we can have various types of events with donors, with students, with alumni, and it overlooks Alumni Park. So we have a glass wall overlooking Alumni Park with doors that open onto a beautiful patio with tables, with seating. So we just think it's going to be a great location for students to connect with Lakeland and to remember that they can stay connected with Lakeland even after they graduate from Lakeland.
Let's talk next about the Workforce Development Center.
Yes, the Workforce Development Center is also a vision of ours that we've had for some time. Many folks realize that we have been in the building downtown, which was the old Walmart building, which is the Workforce Development Building. We sold that building a number of years ago and have been renting some space in preparation for building on campus. So our new Workforce Development Building is about a 17,000 square foot building. It's located on campus right next to the West Building. And our vision was that we would be able to share resources between all the technology programs that are in the West Building and the Workforce Development Center. So that as we're training, the incumbent workers or working with companies on training, we can share those resources and really have that connection and those synergies. That building is set to open in January. It is nearly complete. I try to walk through it at least on a weekly basis. But we're so excited. It has classroom space. It has our manufacturing skills lab. All of our staff who've been located in the current Workforce Development Building will be relocated there. And it will also just build greater ties to campus in general. So they'll feel much more a part of campus and be able to serve the students through workforce development in the same way that we serve them on campus.
You talk about a facility being constructed such as that. I'm reminded of another educator we had here on City Spotlight in season 7, how they were able to get some construction work done to their local school campus in their community, and the pandemic didn't slow them down. It actually ramped up the construction process. Is that a similar thing there with the Workforce Development Center?
It absolutely is. We are ahead of schedule on just about all of our projects. We've done some other improvements on campus. With Podesta Park and our Veterans Memorial, we lighted a nice pathway there. We've been able to refinish the field house floor. We've undertaken a lot of projects because you're absolutely right. Without a lot of students on campus, it's much easier for our contractors and those working on campus to find the time to be on campus when they're not disrupting the educational process. So that has been a benefit of the pandemic, is that it has allowed us to move quickly on some projects that we didn't expect would move as quickly.
We'll take some small positives in this crazy year. Very good.
Absolutely.
We had to have one little blip on the radar there, but can you speak to the effect of the Neal Hall roof fire, which fortunately no one was injured in, but it's the recovery and reconstruction of that is going well.
Sure, and you're right. I'm so thankful that another benefit of the pandemic is we had no students in the building at the time. So that really could have caused some significant harm to individuals. So we're very blessed for that. But that fire happened in April. The reconstruction is nearly done. So I'm hoping to take a tour next week of the renovated space since the fire renovations there have been worked on. But we were able to clean and mitigate all the damage throughout the other parts of the building so we can continue our nursing program labs, for instance, and the things we need to do in the remainder of that building. But again, I'm so proud of our staff for helping to address this during a pandemic, such an interesting situation for us.
The solar rooftops you guys have on campus. Talk about that.
Yes, we wrote for a few grants last year to help us put solar onto the rooftops of campus. So we received grants that paid for about 2/3 of the cost to put an additional 400 kilowatt hours worth of photovoltaic on the rooftops of 4 buildings. So we now have 7 buildings on campus that have PV on it. That's generating about 700 kilowatt hours of electricity. So on a nice day like today when the sun's shining, that building most of the buildings that have power now, that will power the building and then put some back into the campus community. So my hope is that eventually we'll get to having all of our buildings on campus with some photovoltaic on the roof and really help to continue to offset our energy costs, which, as you know, as a sustainable campus, we're really focused on making sure that we reduce our reliance on fossil fuels and ultimately reduce the energy costs of campus to our taxpayers and to our students.
And one other accomplishment you wanted to briefly mention, although their athletic season was cut short, all the athletic teams pretty much across the country were cut short, but you wanted to briefly mention the Lady Laker basketball team had an outstanding season last year.
They did. They, of course, were headed to the national tournament when the pandemic hit. We were hoping that there would be some way we could send them, but of course, the National Junior College Athletic Association canceled the tournament. Dave Johnson also received statewide recognition as a coach. The team was outstanding. They were disappointed they couldn't go, but I can't tell you how amazing it is to see those athletes really join together as a team and perform some outstanding athletic feats. I was really hoping, I think this was the year for them to win the national title. Unfortunately, the pandemic had a mind of its own here.
You do have a number of athletes there on campus. Talk about the athletes and the coaches and how they've been able to deal with this and have many of their seasons cut short either last season or have their new seasons that are upcoming delayed.
Sure. We also have a very comprehensive return to play protocol for our athletes. And so many of those athletes, they've been allowed to practice by the NJCAA guidelines. They can practice and they can scrimmage. We have protocols in place. So for instance, when they're not on the field playing in baseball or softball, they have to be spaced 6 feet apart with masks on if they're in the dugout or outside of the dugout. Our coaching staff, umpires, anybody who's not in the field to play. Students who work out, say in the fitness center, have to have their masks on and socially distance. So we've really put protocols into place so that at least they can continue building themselves as athletes. Now we're hoping for the spring that when the NJCAA allows us to continue with our championship season, that we'll continue to follow these protocols and we'll be able to have some semblance of a season and get our athletes from all of our sports onto the fields, onto the courts, and playing. So I'm confident that we will be able to do that with the protocols we have in place to keep athletes safe.
Josh, let's shift gears from accomplishments and talk about outreach to the local business community through Lakeland.
Sure. Well, we know even during a pandemic, there's a tremendous need for employees in the business community and upskilling and reskilling. And so we've worked really hard to keep those relationships vibrant as best we can. And our board has supported us in every way possible. So for instance, our board has passed some at least pilot programs that allow us to work with employers. So if we have an employer out there who's looking to hire employees, but they want them to get trained, if that employer guarantees that they'll hire those employees who are going through training, we'll make sure that those employees have no financial outlay or the employer for the cost of their education. So if there are funds available through WIOA or SEPs or other vehicles, that's fine, but we will make sure that those employees, especially those who want to become employees, don't have any financial outlay. And that's our way to commit to the businesses. We want to make sure we can help businesses stay in our community, find labor in the community, because it's important that they're here. And so we continue to do that level of outreach. Of course, when LSC closed, we worked with LSC to retrain students. I think 17 students took advantage of some offerings we had for their education to make sure that they could come to Lakeland again with minimal economic impact on themselves. But I think it's really important that all of us pull together and support our local businesses, especially right now when we have people that are uncertain about the pandemic, but they certainly need a labor force to keep them moving forward.
Very good. Many business community outreaches that you have listed here. One I want to definitely focus on here is what's going on there at the Cross County Mall in Mattoon, the Mattoon in Motion and Elevate. I was recently in the Cross County Mall with my wife on a date night, and I could not believe how transformed that area is. I had seen it kind of in its construction process, but it looks amazing. Tell us how Lakeland College is intertwined with Elevate and Mattoon in Motion.
Well, we've been involved with Mattoon in Motion since it started, and I think the Elevate project is one that is so vital to our communities. Our board of trustees agreed with our administration that we wanted to be a partner in that, and so we put together some business courses focused on entrepreneurship that as individuals who are members of Elevate, businesses that need that training, we will provide that training at no cost to those individuals so that they can learn how to build and grow a business right here in our community. And again, the long-term implication of that, there's always a short-term cost, but long-term, if we can get more individuals to see the value of staying here in East Central Illinois and building their business here, we're all going to benefit. And so we think that partnership is very valuable. Carlos has done a fantastic job in leading that organization and growing that organization. And I think it has a tremendously bright future. And we're so happy to be a partner. And I'm glad that so many other entities, businesses and education, have viewed that as a partnership as well.
Great to hear about people working together. Obviously, Lakeland College located in Mattoon, so there's a great collaboration there. Great to hear about that.
Yes. The last piece I just want to mention is our partnerships on dual credit in our high schools. Okay. We initiated a couple of initiatives this year. One is through a U.S. Department of Ag grant where we partnered with 5 rural high schools, put in high definition Polycom systems into the high schools and at Lakeland College. We're able to develop real-time dual credit deliver real-time dual credit courses to those high schools. And we're so proud of that because they're high schools that otherwise would not have that opportunity. The other thing we've done with our Board of Trustees support is we're offering a dual credit incentive. So for any student who qualifies for free or reduced hot lunch at their high school, they will be able to take dual credit courses. They'll get a fee waiver for their dual credit course fees. And the reality is it's about $50 to take a 3 credit hour dual credit course. But for many students, that $50 can be a significant barrier to taking that course. And we want to make sure that those funds should not be a barrier to anybody wanting to improve themselves and engage in higher education. And so thus far in the fall, we've seen tremendous success from that initiative. And we look forward to continuing to grow that so that every student in high school has an opportunity to take dual credit courses and continue their educational options even beyond high school.
Accolades and recognition, and you have a couple that you probably want to talk about, but the one right off the bat, again, you've mentioned this previously, the Aspen Institute recognizing Lakeland College, again, as a top 10% community college in the country. Wow, what an honor.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And for us, the Aspen Institute really is the premier organization for community colleges. And this is the 4th time that we've been recognized. And it only happens every other year. So really over a period of time, we've continued to show that we are student focused and we're focused on the quality education for our students. It speaks volumes again to our staff. Every one of our Lakeland staff members, it's a family here. We treat each other as family. We treat our students as family. And I think that represents that as well.
Put a bow on this interview, and what are your thoughts moving forward here? And when the semester ends, is that when you're going to analyze everything moving forward and see where things are going?
Sure. We've been continually analyzing as we go along. As a matter of fact, it's about every week we meet as a team and start talking through what's been happening. So I'm confident that as we continue to move forward into the spring term, we'll have a very good outlook on what summer and fall will look like. But I just want to remind everybody, we are the community's college. So we are here. If you're a business, if you're an individual and you're saying, gosh, I'm not sure where my future wants to take me, contact Lakeland College. We are here to help everybody we possibly can and be a resource for our community.
Again, we are lucky, as we've mentioned here, Talk on City Spotlight, multiple higher education avenues in Central Illinois, Lakeland College here in Coles County. Josh, I look forward to talking with you once again down the road, and maybe it can be the conventional in-person one time down the road. I look forward to that normal interview setting. So the president of Lakeland College, Dr. Josh Bullock, as always, thank you for your time here on City Spotlight.
Thanks, Ramin. Appreciate being on.
City Spotlight is supported by Consolidated Communications. CCI is honored to salute the cities and their leaders in the area, as well as providing TV, internet, and phone service to local homes and businesses. We live where we work and are proud to support the communities we serve. More information available at consolidated.com.